So here we go. And yeah, I'm going to run you through a bunch of, I think, tips. So easy kinds of things that you can do in the face of stress to kind of just interrupt the stress cycle, but also talk a little bit about the larger theme of the way that you can perceive stress and the way that you can almost reframe stress. And I hope that you can learn some things for yourselves, of course, but also some things that maybe you can take to your teams. And also, as I said before, show you some of the resources that we've put together for everybody. So, I think that's really important in your role as a manager to make sure that you're letting your team know about some of the great resources we do have. All right, so what I'd like you to do is just pause for a second and assess your own stress level. Now, this is a link, and by the way, I can share these slides with you if Kathleen could send them. Is that okay? Afterwards, so that you'll have all the links and the phone numbers, and
Yes.
you'll have them handy.
Happy to.
This particular link goes to our Carillon, which is our external provider of our Employee and Family Resources program. And when you get there, you'll see actually it's really a great website. It has lots of resources, and you can access and start services for the program, but there's lots of great information. It's a very robust website. But for now, since I can't take you to the quiz, but for now, just simply rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no stress whatsoever. I don't know if anybody's there, but if you are, that's terrific. 10 being, over the top, kind of overwhelming stress, ongoing, relentless, and just give yourself a number. You don't have to share it, but the idea is just to rank yourself so that you have a sense of where you're at today. Now, that number may go up and down depending on what's going on for you at home and at work and the various things in life. But for now, just give yourself that number. And then perhaps at the end, we can go through that. But I would also say, try some of the things that I'm giving you. And I realize you can't do them all, but try a couple of things. See if you can have some takeaways that you can try for yourself and see if they work for you. And then maybe a few days later or a week later, you rank yourself again and see how they work for you. And that's really, I think, the bottom line, because we're all facing, I don't know if you've heard of this acronym before, VUCA, stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And if you've not heard of it, perhaps you've just simply felt what it is. These times that we live in healthcare, but also in the world around us, have all these elements, which kind of really buffet us about, like almost like being in a hurricane in a sense. And it makes it very hard for us to focus and to get things done and to just kind of keep our heads above water when we're feeling this. So this quote, if you've been feeling overwhelmed or unfocused, if you've struggled with staying on task or been blindsided by emotion during this time, me too, probably most of us, but this is precisely what our prior research regarding the human brain's attention system would predict. And that's Amishi Jha, who is a neuroscientist at the University of Miami. And she studies high stress occupations like first responders, police, fire, military, those kinds of folks. And she also has included healthcare professionals in her studies. And part of what she studied was what is the best way to learn how to focus, especially under high stress conditions? How can we kind of keep our cool and keep that mental composure? And mindfulness, of course, is one of the things that they came across that was most effective. So if you have been in some of my classes, a lot of what I talk about are mindful practices. But I'll try to show you some quick and easy ways, even they don't have to be full-blown meditations, but simple kinds of things that you can do to overcome this VUCA condition. First step is simply the power of a purposeful or intentional pause, maybe even what you might call a strategic pause. So when you're in the midst of things and we're trying to get stuff done, so many people that I talk to are constantly multitasking. And it's just one of the ways that we try to keep up with all the things that we have to get done. Okay, well, if you're going to do that, realize that when you're multitasking, you're switching the brain's capacity to focus on one thing and then switching it back, and you're kind of toggling back and forth. And what that does is it's very mentally taxing and emotionally draining. So these simple little pauses, which can be as quick as a minute or longer, preferably, but really can be very brief, are a way to kind of psychologically change gears, reset our attention, be able to step back from all that's going on, and kind of recharge our batteries. So one simple little technique that I think is great is called the stop. And it's simply an acronym for to, and you can do this as I'm talking. So give it a try. The S is to stop and take stock. So, what are you feeling like right now? What's going on for you right now? I know this is just a training, but perhaps you've had a busy day or there's lots going on. So just stop and just check in with yourself. Okay. How am I doing? Just asking yourself that question. And then the T is to take a deep mindful breath or two or three so that you really just bring your awareness to the breathing and feel that inflow and outflow. Maybe making the breath a bit deeper and longer. Which brings us to O, and that's to then be open and observe what's going on in the mind, what thoughts are present. Maybe you notice a lot of thoughts or swirling thoughts or negative thoughts or positive, whatever might be there right now. And then also what's going on in the heart, what feelings are present, what's your general mood. Again, these are just quick check-ins. And then the third is what's going on in the body. How does the body feel? Relaxed, tense. Maybe some of those thoughts and emotions are playing out and manifesting in the body. So we're just kind of checking in with that. And that's sort of expanding our field of awareness and being aware of ourselves in time and space and kind of checking in with how we're doing brings us to the last step of P, and that's new possibilities or proceeding without expectations, without getting caught up in the automatic reaction of what might be next. In other words, it just gives us kind of a little bit of a breathing space so that we take a minute for ourselves. And that's the stop. So I would encourage you to try that, either in response to a stressor or just try it a couple times throughout the day. Because of course, the more we do these kinds of things, the better at it we get. Second is to anchor or ground ourselves. And again, you can do this with me. It can be done pretty much anywhere, anytime, in the moment. It can be done while you're reacting, you're feeling a little bit of stress or overwhelm, or it can be done just as a practice. Could be done in the car, like you're rushing to get somewhere, or maybe you're standing in line at a grocery store and you're again in a rush or something like that, or you're a bit stressed. So all it really comes down to, if you're sitting, I'm assuming most people are sitting, but even if you're standing, just feel the weight of your body and feel the surface beneath you. So if you're in a chair, just feel the chair, the different touch points and how it supports you. So feel perhaps the lower torso and the sit bones and the pelvic area and the lower back. And just let the weight of your body kind of sink in and give up to gravity. And just notice what that density of the body feels like, the weight of the body. Now bring your attention down to your feet and kind of do the same thing. Feel that transfer of weight down through the legs into the feet, and feel the contact that your feet make with the ground. And just explore that for a few seconds, what that feels like, the soles of your feet. And if you like to use your imagination, you can even imagine roots growing out of the bottom of your feet into the ground. So those are simple ways to ground ourselves. You can also feel your arms and hands kind of resting comfortably and in contact and being grounded. So what this does is it gets us out of the head, out of all those, especially if we're busy and we're multitasking, we have a lot of thoughts going on, gets us out of the head and into the body. Now, the problem is, here's what happens next. Very often we have what might be called monkey mind, where there's a lot of thoughts going on. And this actually is what happens when we're not task oriented, when we're just sitting with really kind of nothing to do, our minds tend to wander, and they also tend to wander to negative things. And so what happens is it leads us to kind of almost like a state of rumination, and we begin to worry, and that kind of fills our minds, and it can get kind of overwhelming unless you could try the stop technique or other pauses. You might have other pauses that you already do, and or the grounding technique to kind of stop that cycle. But here's where the key to me is with any of these kinds of techniques, it's in how we kind of train our mind to react to this stuff. Now, Mark Twain said, "My life has been filled with terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." And it's so true, when you think about it, if you just turn on the news these days or just think about some of what's going on in the world around us, or even at work, or just sort of that again, that uncertainty, that volatility, complexity, and ambiguity, we can easily get caught up in the worry about what's going to happen down the road. But that's not really what's here, is it? Right here and now. But our minds can time travel, and we can project and we can ruminate quite easily. And what makes it even worse is that our brains actually do have a negativity bias because of the way that we've evolved. We've had to focus on negative threats. And so they say it like this: negative experiences stick to the brain like Velcro, positive experiences slide off the brain like Teflon. And in fact, they've even kind of proven this in some of the research studies, that we do have a tendency to focus more on the negative things that are going on around us. That's why it's so easy to get caught up in the stressful cycle. But the good news is we have what's called neuroplasticity. You might have heard of this, but it simply means that our brains grow and adapt, and that the more we practice something, the stronger it gets. So it's just like going to the gym, but sort of think of it as like mental exercise. And that's what that Amishi Jha, the author of Peak Mind, which is a very good book, by the way, talks about training our mind and training our ability to focus when we most need it, even during the most chaotic, hectic days. So when we practice these kinds of things, even small little practices, it builds stronger networks in the brain. So neurons that fire together, wire together. So that's the good news. Now, one of the things very simply that we can do is just simply breathe. There are a number of breathing techniques. There have been a lot of studies that show how effective breathing is. And these are all just really simple kinds of ways. I'm going to show you 3 different kinds of breath techniques. This is not even meditative at this point. This is simply learning to regulate our breathing so that we can calm the mind and calm the body. And there are, as I said, 3 types I think of very effective breathing. In fact, I'll cite a study in a minute. And I encourage you to do this along with me, but I will do a brief practice with you when we get in a few slides. We'll kind of put it all together. So the first one is called 4-6-8. And what you do is you breathe in for 4, hold it for 6, and then out for 8, which may seem kind of hard if you try it. And you might want to just try it with me as I'm talking about it. So breathe into 4, hold, and then out for 8, kind of counting to yourself. So it's a really slow, long out breath. And that's kind of the key to this. When we focus on the exhale especially, and make that exhale really long. You can almost feel the body relaxing and releasing as you breathe out. And it brings on, well, it kind of counteracts that, the fight or flight response. So breathing in for 4, then holding for, whatever's comfortable. 6 might be a little too long for some. And then out to 8. You can breathe out through your nose or your mouth. And then there's box breathing. So it's simply 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out, hold for 4, and then continue. Now, with all these, it helps to do, at least a few cycles, if not maybe 5, even 6 or 7, if you can, if you have time for that. But as I said, these can be done pretty quickly. Then the cyclic sign, which has been shown to be one of the most effective, is a 2-part in-breath. So you're kind of breathing in halfway, you're filling the belly area at the first part. And then the second part, you're breathing in all the way, filling up to the lungs. You sort of feel the lungs fill. And then you hold it for just a second and then breathe out with a sigh. So you're like, just kind of letting it all release. So try this with me. So breathe in halfway, fill the belly, all the way, fill the lungs, pause, and then. Now, I find this one very effective, especially if I do this 3 or 4 times. Try it again, halfway in, all the way in. As you breathe out, just really feel the body relaxing, let the tension flow out. And it can help to do some added steps. You can sort of feel your shoulders relax, maybe the muscles around your face and your jaw relax as you do that. And then, of course, there's just simply focusing on the breath itself. So breathing in and out, you can say to yourself in and out, just to kind of keep the focus on the breath. Or you can use words that help you relax, like calm and ease. So on the in breath, say to yourself, calm. On the out breath, ease. And these are just simple labeling, kind of mentally noting to yourself ways to stay focused on the breath, which leads us into getting kind of into the mindfulness part of it, which I'll explain a little bit more about it when we get to the exercise. But this particular article, if you want to follow up on it, cites a research study that compared those breathing techniques with mindfulness meditation. They were all very effective. And basically what they found is that it really leads to more positive feelings and fewer negative ones, and reduced feelings of anxiety, and as little as 5 minutes a day. So, but the trick is, like any skill or practice, we need to get some control. We need to get good at it. So they also found that the more days in a row, or the more a person got into the routine of doing these things, they felt better each successive day. So this might be one of the things that you might try. Try maybe picking one of those techniques, trying them during the day, and see how that works for you. Or maybe try to get a regular routine with this, and then rate yourself again on that 1 to 10 scale and see if it makes a difference. Simple enough, right? Now here's where it gets, to me, kind of interesting. How do we turn stress into a strength? Well, we reframe it. So here they did this really interesting study with something like 30,000 American adults. And so people who view stress as a challenge rather than a threat completely negated the negative effect of chronic stress on their longevity. So the study found that those who had very stressful lives were 43% more likely to die, higher mortality rate, when they perceived that stress as being harmful to their health, as opposed to those who believed that stress was not harmful, were actually 17% less likely to die, even though they experienced high levels of stress themselves. So it's the belief factor itself that accounts for like that 60% swing and actually makes a difference in our bodily response to stress, which is really kind of amazing when you think about it. So what we're doing with this is we're kind of changing to a stress enhancing mindset. So when you interpret stress as helpful rather than harmful, it actually changes the body's response, makes a difference in your cardiovascular profile. And it, even though when you're stressed, the fight or flight tends to still arise, that part of the nervous system still comes up, but the physiological responses are more adaptive and strengthening rather than debilitating. So that's what accounts for those folks who didn't believe that stress was harmful and having a better outcome. So the goal isn't to eliminate stress, which is pretty hard to do anyway, I think, but it's to meet it with a different lens or a different perspective. So we reframe it by realizing that, hey, this isn't panic or anxiety or overwhelming stress that's happening. This is a challenge. This is preparation. And that stress isn't always the enemy, but sometimes it gives you the activation energy that your body needs to rise to that particular challenge. And that's kind of what it gets down to. So the bottom line is that stress isn't inherently bad, but it's in how we respond to it that matters. And I think most of us would agree with this, but the trick is how do we kind of make that happen? So just like muscle, developing muscle and going to the gym and weightlifting, mental toughness is built, not born. So the next time you're tested, pause for a second, try one of those pause techniques, breathe, and remind yourself that this is training. This is a way that I can train my mind and my body to get stronger. So at this point, when I bring up this pause here, let me just pause and see, do you have any questions or comments or reactions to what I've been talking about? Does this seem, first of all, we have the simple techniques of interrupting the stress cycle, but then the more overarching way of thinking about stress and perceiving and looking at our beliefs about stress. And you can use the chat, or I think we're small enough if you just want to speak up and if you have a question. Any questions or comments?
I think it's nice to just be reminded that we can do something as simple as slowing down our breathing and being mindful of it during the day, no matter where we are, because we all do deal with stress and busyness and everything else. So it's just a good reminder.
Yes, exactly. I really couldn't have said it better myself. And that's all this really is a reminder. I think most of us know these things, but do we practice them? And so that idea of looking at stress differently, well, where do we start with that? So William James, is an early American psychologist, realized this is over 100 years old. The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. And again, I think most of us have a lot of resilience and we have a lot of ability to focus our thoughts, and we have great creativity and problem solving and analyzing. But sometimes, that monkey mind comes up, and especially when we're under those VUCA conditions or monkey mind or things are not going our way, that's where it gets out of control. So, like you said, doesn't take much. Simple little techniques are very, very effective. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, but I wanted to jump in and
Thanks.
I noticed that it was a little silent when you first asked the question. And I am one of Bud's converts. Those of you may know me. Kathleen, you may know I've talked about this before. And as a consultant in the IFE, I do a lot of work with leaders and we do a lot of coaching with leaders. And I find in my coaching practice that many leaders are not practicing these techniques. And I always recommend them. I don't know how many have showed up in your course, Bud, but I always recommend them to you, and I always show them our behavioral health support benefits and ask them to look at those not as support for themselves, but as awareness and knowledge as a leader, that you're going to have staff who come to you who may be in distress, who may not be aware of these resources. And so it's a really wonderful way for you to become aware of these free, fantastic benefits to be able to hand to your employees in their time of stress, because you have other things to focus on, quite honestly. Their well-being is, of course, something we want you to think about, but um, it's sort of like putting on your oxygen mask. I'm quoting you, Bud.
Yeah.
And making sure you're taking care of yourself. And I want to say one more thing. If you think this is a load of whatever word you want to insert there, and I'll say that boldly because I thought it was for decades of my life until I met Bud and started practicing these things. You need to practice it. Just try it. And from one skeptic to perhaps another, it will change your life. And I'm sitting in an office somewhere waiting for a medical appointment, and I find myself slipping into meditation almost automatically now and breathing techniques to resolve the stress I'm feeling. I'm aware of what's happening in my body. I'm aware of negative thoughts and the fact that I can, keying off this quote right here, I can choose not to think that way in the moment and find a different path for my thoughts. So I know you all don't know me very well, but I'm a passionate believer in this because I'm a convert and a skeptic. And it is based on how many years of practice, Bud? 5,000 millennia or 5 millennia, 5,000 years?
Yeah, that's
5,000
true.
millennia, probably.
Yep.
Anyway, I've spoke
Thank
my
you.
piece. I just wanted to put that out there to you because that was my life experience. But thank you, Bud.
Well, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate you saying that, and it really is a nice testimonial to these. They're really not that difficult. They really can be viewed sometimes as being a little bit of. Well, sometimes we think of it as not the way that we're trained in our culture and our society of achievement, and let's face it, in healthcare, it's on to the next thing right away. Like I said, you're multitasking, and these things really can make a difference. So as Mike said, just give one or two a try. I'm going to show you those resources that he talked about as well, so that you can pass them along and encourage your team to use some of them. But just as an example, I don't know about you, but I've been stressed about so many different world events going on. But if we just take one, for example, and you just think of one thing that's bothering you in the world today, this is a way to apply this. Take a pause, take 3 breaths. So this particular is breathing in, feel the breath, slow down, let it calm you. Breathe in for you. Okay, so this is kind of an added breathe in whatever you need in the moment. Care, compassion, support, relaxation, focus, whatever it might be. And then breathe out for others, all those that you worry about. Could be in your circle, your own network, or it could be those who are affected by events in the world. Once you do that simple step, then you're more able to feel your feelings. You can acknowledge them and label them without being swept away by them. That's the key. And then you can take steps. Then you can educate yourself, resource yourself, make a plan, put it into action. And to me, that is kind of a simplistic way, but it's a way that we can step back from all that's going on in our own world when we're on the front lines, and we can learn how to take action without getting caught up in it. So one way to think about it is, where do you find peace? I know we all have maybe a place or a person or a hobby or a thing or music or whatever. I've listed a few things here. Where do you find peace? And let me ask you this question. Are you accessing that on a regular basis? Are you taking care of yourself? Even if it's during the day, are you finding a pause to think about it and maybe plan that next, whatever it is, the next vacation or that weekend or that activity that brings you a little bit of sense of peace and joy? Try to do some of these things during those breaks, during those pauses, and that also can make a difference. So what I thought I'd do now is just take, a short exercise, and we'll just kind of bring some of this stuff together. If you've never meditated before, it is like a meditation, but it's pretty brief. I'm going to keep it to about 5 minutes. But I'm going to try to bring in those different elements, and then we'll talk a little bit about it afterwards if you have any questions. But all you have to do is listen to my voice, sit back and relax, and you can't do this wrong. And to start, I would just say sit comfortably. So find a position where you feel really relaxed and comfortable and supported. So feel free to adjust. Usually helps to have your feet flat on the floor, but again, whatever is best for you. Sitting in a way that you can be relaxed, but also awake and alert. So you can be attentive. So feeling that position. First thing we're going to do is bring our awareness into the body, like I talked about before, and just feel your body sitting. Feel the weight of your body. I don't know if I mentioned you can close your eyes, that might help. Or if you prefer, you can keep them slightly open with a downward, unfocused gaze. So feel into the body, feel the weight of the body, feel your feet on the floor. Just get a sense of the body sitting here. Allow the body to relax a little bit. Let go a little bit of that tension. You could do this with some stretching too, by the way, but for now, just let go of the tension in your shoulders and your jaw and your hands, and just let yourself be a little bit loose, almost like Jello. Just feel relaxed and supported. And then bring your attention to your breath. And you can do whatever kind of breathing you like, but for now, we'll just do some simple deep breathing. So just breathe in, maybe to the count of about 4, hold it, and then breathe out long and slow. Make sure that out breath is long and empties all the air out. Do that a couple more times, breathing in, filling the lungs, pausing, breathing out, letting the tension go, relaxing and releasing. One more time, in and out. Now again, you can breathe out through your mouth or your nose, whatever's most comfortable for you. And then let your breath return to its natural rhythm. And just for a moment or so, just follow your breathing with your attention and just feel the sensations of each breath. You can say to yourself, if it helps, in and out, or calm and ease, whatever words you like. But the point is, try to stay focused on the breath in and out as best you can. And what most people notice is that their mind wanders. And that's just the natural state of our mind. Our minds wander all the time. And when you notice that, just be aware of that, because it's actually a moment of mindfulness. Let go of that which distracted you and bring your attention back to the next breath or to your feeling of the body again. Either one it can be sort of a gateway to presence. And you just keep returning time and time again. That's the basic practice of mindfulness. And it also strengthens our focus and our attention and our ability to return from distraction when we do this. The other thing to keep in mind is to be kind to yourself. Don't give yourself a hard time if you find yourself with a lot of thoughts going on and it's hard to focus. It's okay. Don't worry about that. Don't give yourself a hard time. In fact, now let's be aware of our thinking, and notice the thoughts as they come and go. Pay attention to what thoughts are here right now, but without getting caught up with them, without engaging them. Just be aware of whatever thoughts are present in your mind right now. There might be all kinds of thinking going on, and that's okay. It might be a worry thought or a planning thought or a what's this guy talking about thought. Just be aware and see if you can just kind of step back from it, kind of watching your thoughts come and go in kind of a neutral way. So that, again, you're not analyzing, you're not fixing anything right now, you're just being aware of those thoughts. And with some practice, we can begin to notice some patterns of thinking are very helpful, and some patterns of thinking are not so helpful, and they kind of do carry us away and they get us into rumination. But some ways of thinking can be very helpful. And it just gives us a little bit of insight into our own thinking and into ways to kind of pick those thoughts when we need them, the thoughts that are helpful. Now, for the very last step, before I close this exercise out, just bring to mind one thing that you're grateful for. Just whatever first comes to mind, okay? And just spend a few seconds with it. Just explore that thing that you're grateful for. It could be a person or a set of circumstances or a home or your health, whatever it might be. Just whatever it is, just reflect on it for a minute before you move on. Just notice it. Just notice what thoughts you feel about it. Notice what feelings it brings up. You might even notice where you feel it in the body. Just feel that gratitude. And when you're ready, you can let go of that. We could take one last nice breath. And as we close, you can slowly open the eyes as we finish that practice, that meditation. And I'd love to hear what you thought about that. Again, you can feel free to talk if you'd like, or you can use the chat either way. But it's just a simple way to bring some of those things together. You can do them individually, you can do them all together. I'll show you some ways that you can access some meditations if you want to try. This particular link here on the bottom takes you to, I have a group of nature videos. They're all very brief, and that's going to talk briefly about nature, how helpful that can be. Okay, I see somebody's got to jump off, no problem. You got to take care of what you got to do. I certainly understand. So, want to just lead you into this as one way to kind of think about a healthy mind. And this is the Healthy Mind Platter. Much like we have the healthy food platter, we need all elements in the right kind of doses for proper nutrition. It's the same way. So you can see we need sleep time, physical time, focus time, connecting time, play time, downtime, and time in. And so you might look through this and just what stands out for you. What do you need to cultivate a little bit more? Connecting time, for example, is so important. Our social network is so important for stress management. So maybe it's, working on some relationships with folks you haven't talked to for a while. Maybe it's downtime or playtime, things that you just bring that sense of joy, or maybe learning to sleep better, or more exercise and better nutrition. Maybe it's a little more meditation or prayer or time in. So just maybe pick one or two as something you might want to work on in the next week or so. And that could be one way to kind of strengthen some ways to build that healthy mind platter.
Hey, Bud, what is time in? What is the definition of that? That's
So
something
time in is simply meditation or prayer. So it could be even time journaling could be time in or meditation or anything where you're kind of like turning inward. And going to a therapist could be, talking about what's going on internally for you. Okay, does that
Thank
help?
you. Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go through these kind of quick, but I like these because these are good ways that you can find some quick breaks. Noticing nature has been shown in the research to be quite effective in, as you can see there, positive emotions, interconnectedness, reduces feelings of loneliness. And so if you want to check this out, this is from a podcast called The Science of Happiness. These are all like 5 to 15 minute brief podcast episodes. So you've got the links there, but you might try one or two of these when you get a chance. Or you might actually, go out in nature yourself. And that's another way that you can actually put a couple of things together. You can get some exercise, you can get some time in, reflecting on what's going on for you, being mindful as you walk. You can do, put a couple of those things together. So at this point, because I do want to end on time, I do want to go through a few slides, but before I do, again, let me know if you have any questions. Kind of went through some of that stuff fast, but let me know if you have any questions. But I want you to know about some of the great resources. This is Employee and Family Resources Program, which I'm directly associated with. And this program provides counseling, up to 6 sessions at no charge, lots of different ways, in-person, phone, or video, work-life resources, so that helps you find childcare, elder care, daily living kinds of things, and then also legal and financial services, as well as critical incident response, all free, all confidential, open to all employees. You don't have to be in the medical plan. All employees, no matter what, if you're full-time, part-time, even per diem, can take advantage of this. And their dependent family members and household family members. And these services are actually provided by Carillon. It's an outside company. So their records do not come back to us. We do not know who actually uses the program. We get no names. We do get aggregate total numbers of people who use it, but it's totally confidential, totally private. Nothing comes back to MyChart or Epic. Nothing comes back to human resources. Very, very confidential service. So that's EFR. They also do have these life cycle kits. And as you can see, there is one on stress management, which you might be interested in, but you can call to get one. You do have to call the program, that toll-free number, or any of these other life events, and they send it directly to your home. So if you see one that looks interesting to you, please feel free to give them a call and ask for one. I'm going to go back. You can find the list of these on that site, that Carillon Wellbeing site, and it spells out what's actually in each kit. Now, you as a leader can make a referral to EFR, and what I would encourage you to do is make, most of the time, informal referrals. Simply remind your team about the program and just suggest it as a helpful resource. You might even periodically bring it up in a staff meeting and just remind people, or hand out the brochure, or tell people where they can get information, or tell them about one of our classes or something like that. You can also make what's called a formal referral. This is where you recommend EFR as a resource. You can't, in this condition, you're not forcing someone to go, but you're recommending it because you're beginning to notice that perhaps there's a personal issue that's beginning to overflow into the workplace. Now, you can do a documented formal referral. That simply means that you would then know whether or not the person went to the program, but a release of information has to be signed. These are pretty rare when that happens. A formal referral is not so rare, but having the release signed is pretty rare. In that case, you want to contact your human resources business partner. And especially for this last step, and these are quite rare, what we would call a mandatory referral. And this is where you are requiring the employee to call the program. So coordinate it with your business partner, your HR business partner. A release form is signed. You actually do that with the employee. And in that case, you would be notified if they made contact and if they're following the plan of action. Now, you would not ever be told what the issue is. You wouldn't be told any private information, but this is reserved for the kind of last step kinds of situations where a person might have done something against company policy, or there's risk involved to themselves or to a patient perhaps, or a coworker or something like that. But again, consultation with HR is important. You can always get consultation from us too. And these are pretty rare circumstances, but just know that there are these steps involved for you as a manager if you feel you need to help somebody really get in touch with the program. Now, you can also get consultation as a manager. You might have a situation where you're not sure what to do. It's something you've never come across before. You can call myself or one of my coworkers. I had that up front. My supervisor, Gail Cole, or my colleague, Vivian Burgle. But you can also call the program directly, that same toll-free number, hit option 2, and you'll be connected to a team of workplace consultants, and they can talk over the situation with you, and they can help you decide if you want to make a referral, or if something else is needed, they can walk you through that in that consultation. But here are some key points to tell employees about the program. Again, that it is confidential. It's done by an outside company. All the services are free, up to 6 sessions per issue per year. So actually you can use it more than once. Family dependents and household members can also use the program. And all employees, as I mentioned, regardless of status, may use it. And it encompasses a number of different helpful services. Critical incident response is important to know, especially if something kind of traumatic occurs to an employee or to your team. You can call the program again, same phone number, same option 2, and they can talk with you about what's needed. And in some cases, they can actually send somebody on site to talk with those folks who have been affected by that particular situation. Now, here's something that's kind of interesting. We've added on, we now have a peer support network. So there's 2 levels. You have critical incident response, which is done through EFR, but you also have peer support. So we've trained peers. There's a team at each of the major delivery networks, and they are folks, our own employees. They're not mental health professionals, but there are employees who've been trained to provide this one-to-one or small group assistance. And basically what they're doing are these kinds of things, but really what it comes down to is that mental health first aid or emotional first aid, just to help a person. And very often they're making referrals to us, but also very often they're just helping the person, walking alongside them, kind of giving them that helping hand. We do a number of other services like this class. We do upon request for departments. We can do stress breaks for department team meetings. We do have monthly mindfulness sessions that people can sign up for on LMS. And I do have a session coming up starting in June called Flourishing in Stressful Times. And that'll be a 4-part, actually a 5-part series over the summer. And all of those classes count for Know Your Numbers credits. So that's kind of nice as well. Do phone meditations. If you don't know about these, this is simply a call-in live meditation that occurs that employees can call into. But if those times don't work for you or somebody at work, they can also use the app that we have. And this has a number of different live and on-demand small courses and meditations and practices and lots of great stuff on here. So if you don't know about this, again, you go to that main EFR website, which is the Carillon Wellbeing. Then, before I leave, let you go. I know we're right at 3 o'clock. I want to just remind you that we do have a new program called Health Coaching. We have health coaches who are available to provide free one-to-one health coaching for any of these kinds of health promotion or fitness or any of these activities that you see on the slide. And to start that, you just simply go to our email, thrivehealthcoaching@ynhh.org. And you'll find all this information on Thrive. So you'll find that here under departments and communities, under T, it opens up to all this. All my information, EFR information, is under my well-being. So I know, I gotta take a breath. Sorry about trying to fit all that in, but I want you to know about the resources, and let me stop the share and see if you have any quick questions before I let you go. Any questions at all?
You want to stop the recording.